Alright, this is a video response to Infinite Peace on her video on being an empath, and kind of wanted to talk about the related subject, and I'm going to call it thought snatching. Okay. But you have to be careful when you're describing it, because it can be poorly construed. I mean, most people hear the word empath and it's being an empath, I can tell you that it's kind of a subject that, well, most people find it very, ooh, a bit ineffable, and I find it just like, kind of conversation, it's worthy of tea and toast. So, over a breakfast table. So, to me, it's very sort of mundane. What I mean by thought snatching is the idea of people's thoughts being able to be perceived by others in an unconscious, subconscious way. There are actually some scientific journals. Well, some could argue about the scientificity of them, but I think that is not a discussion I'm interested in. For example, an article I used for a presentation, I think it was from the Canadian Journal of Psychoanalysis, which do directly deal with some of this subject, and the article was talking about just that, the unconscious transfer of material in, for example, psychoanalysis or therapy that occurs between people. So we know that there's stuff going on in the unconscious, but the real interest is this connective business. And I said you have to talk about it carefully, because it's this idea of people getting the idea of telepathy and psychic stuff, and that's the thing, is it's not an actual snatching. It's not a voluntary reaching out. Well, sometimes though it can be, and that's where I'm interested, I guess. I mean, in a bad way, in like bad horror movies and such, there's these bad psychics who like reach into people's minds and they get out the information that they need, and then they leave. The good way of this happening is more benign, and yet it's still remarkable. So I'm going to give a couple examples. I was recently in an airport, and for an empath in an airport, it's so many minds bustling again. I mean, it's like a storm, actually. And I remember walking through the terminals, walking, and I'm dragging my bag, and I'm going, and there was this moment, not externally, not physically, but like it looked to an onlooker that I was just walking, but to me, what it felt like is I, tripped, or I stopped. And it felt like my internal self was sort of all of a sudden looking around, and then continuing to go. Now, I didn't actually stop, and I didn't actually look around. I was just carrying my thing. This was all kind of happening in my head. But it was like, for a moment, everything became inverted. This is the best way I can describe it to non-empaths, I guess. I mean, to me, it's like talking about, it's like a baseball pitcher trying to describe how he pitches to someone who has never pitched baseball. You kind of... So anyway, it was like, for a moment, everything snapped, and I was able to see, and it was like the thoughts, and everything. It was like, for a moment, I got this image of, but it wasn't just inverted with colors. It was like sandstorms and whooshes and lightning and just all sorts of. It was like, and then I snapped. It was just a moment, but interesting. The example was, I was sitting in the plane, and I was sitting behind two gentlemen who were talking with the steward. They were having a kind of avid conversation. It was kind of late, and so everyone kind of wanted a drink. Yeah, especially in the front of the plane, which is where I was. Not sitting first class, but probably with, I'd just gotten a seat randomly, and it was a small enough plane where there was no first class. But I imagine the gents in front of me, maybe their front seats weren't so random, and they might have been more typical first class flyers. So anyway, they kind of expected drinks, you see what I'm saying? So, as the steward was getting ready to give out things, he was going through the list of things you could have, and he said something, I don't know, at some point someone, or I think he said like, what would you like, or you can have whatever you like, or something like. This thought arose in my head. I'm just kind of sitting there looking out the window to my left, and I thought to myself, but I didn't think to myself. This thought occurred to me. That's how I have to phrase this, because that's how it makes sense, so that I can get an understanding across. I said, I would gin and tonic is what came up in my mind. Oh man, gin and tonic would sound great. And then I sort of sat back, and I was like, wait, I didn't actually start like this. Again, it was my internal self sort of went, wait, if you can imagine like this, here's this external body, and then like imagine like now we're inside my body, and we're in my mind, which is not a physical thing. And in this mind, there's these little parts, and there's like this little homunculus, and that's the thing that's doing these sort of gestures I'm intimating. So this internal part of me sort of goes, where did that? It basically just kind of became aware of this thought in a new way, and I started to be like, I didn't want a gin and tonic. I wasn't even really thinking about, yeah, sure, a drink sounds alright, and sure enough I got a drink, but it was not that. I was very unsurprised, I guess, when, I'm still sort of, this is kind of reflecting in my mind, kind of reverberating on this thought, and then the steward goes to the first person, who's the person directly in front of me. So the steward turns to his right, and he's like, what would you like, sir? And the guy immediately goes, yeah, gin and tonic, please. And so, retrospectively, looking back, it's like this thought came up, and as I say, this thought occurred to me, but it was like it was trying to traipse itself around in the trappings of my mind, trying to, temporarily at least, convince me that it was my thought. And so this is kind of why I'm making the video. I'm so glad I'm making this, because I was thinking about this video for quite some time, actually. I was thinking about, well, what do I really want to ask with this video? What kind of question? What am I really bringing up? And am I just musing about my hyperactive imagination? No. The thought occurring to me, not being my own, and the person in front of me, it being his thought, and it came up in my mind, traipsed, camouflaged as my own thought. And so, I guess that's part of the question, is distinguishing between what is within myself and what is yours. What's mine and what's yours, in terms of this thoughtscape, in terms of that brilliant storm that was all those minds gathered together in the airport. But even just in any situation where there's people, I guess, yeah, how do you advise about not only figuring out what's yours and what's not, because as you can see in that case I figured out that was, a lot of people are going to have problems with this and think I'm kind of nuts for saying so, but quite frankly, that was not my thought. It just occurred to me. I don't know if I should also ask how I can phrase it better. Can I talk? How can I? Because I have to be able to express myself, and if these kinds of things are occurring to me that are verging on what most would describe as the supernatural, yeah, it's a bit challenging. So, yeah, because it's not that I'm asking what do I do with it, it's that I'm asking how do I use this gift, if you can call it that, this ability? What should I do to sort of train it to harness it? Because I found your technique in the On Being an Empath video useful and used it, although I had to kind of amend it slightly. For example, when there was a patron of the airport next to me who was very aware of me, and our minds, I felt like this young woman's mind was like sticking to mine, and it was like, and I finally had to be like, I kind of used some of the gentle techniques of just giving it back, and and then I had to finally do my own thing and say, get out of my head. And in my head I threw down a window shade, and that seemed to help better. So I found your techniques to be good and amenable to my own self. So here I'm wondering if there's a kind of thing I should endeavor with regards to thought snatching. Let me give you a much better example of what I'm talking about. I was sitting with some friends. We recently, that plane, I was coming back from a wedding. A lot of good friends, a lot of old friends at this wedding. And I saw that in the evening, we'd all gathered after the wedding, and of course we were having merriment and such in the hotel room. We were mostly just sitting around and having good conversation. It was excellent, it was wonderful, it was absolutely amazing. And to my right, there's a couch, and there's 3 people sitting on it. There's A, who is the girlfriend of J, and J is sitting on the other end of the couch. In between them, there's someone else. I'm sitting next to A. Now, J and A have been together for 8 years. They're a wonderful couple. It's true love and all that stuff. I mean, really strong couple. And of course, we're all very good friends. And when we all come together, as everyone knows, when you come together with a group of an old group of friends that's stayed over years, I mean, I don't know, this broaches other ineffable topics like the idea that certain people are bound together in a kind of destiny-style way. But I really don't like to talk. That'll be another video. The idea, that's an old idea, that certain people are drawn together. So we have that going on in our group. And to some, what happened was lousy discussion started. And it was about drugs. And sort of some ugly drugs, and how, some people, they inject like gasoline and stuff into their arm, and not just that, but other things, and it leaves like these wounds that necrotize, and it's this this dead flesh. And so this discussion turned really sour, and I could see A, the girl, up to my side, really cringing against this conversation, like, oh god, let's not talk about this, god. And she's not the kind of girl to cringe at this. It's interesting, because she seems like the kind of person, well, she's a very strong person. She deals with a lot of strong stuff psychologically, but the idea of flesh rotting, it just wasn't her thing. And as if he had heard her thoughts, Joe is this, okay, so I said his name. He's a great guy. He's so excellent, and in social situations. And so quickly, just without it, not even with a thought, I mean, just he said something that just lightened the discussion. And I saw her kind of relax a bit and sort of have this half smile on her face. And then he said something that made everyone burst into peals of laughter. I mean, everyone just cracked up, totally forgot this ugly discussion. And I thought to myself, I love him. And I do. I love him. I love him as a friend. I love Joe. But this thought, I love him, was again, I had that internal sense of stopping and looking around, and this time it was a much more, it wasn't just like a reflective, it was like I grabbed this thought, I love him, that had just occurred to me, and I was like examining it, like, what the hell, what is this? Because it was much too strong, and and then I realized, I look over, and Aubrey was sitting there, so, the previous small smile had, grown, and she was the one who had thought, I love him, when he said that, because he had changed the subject. He had made it nice. And I felt it too, but I felt her feeling it, and it literally again, that same feeling of the other person's thought coming up and traipsing itself within the confines of, and being like, oh, I'm your thought, because it's not like it occurs to me, and then I'm like, I know, I'm able to, so I guess that's part of the challenge for me, is I would like to be able to know what's mine and what's not, so if something occurs to me, I can be like, here's this, but I guess maybe that's just part and parcel for the whole thing, I don't know, your thoughts and input would be marvelous. So I think I'm just about done. Those are the examples. Thought snatching. The thought went through her head in this linear way. I love him. The thought did not go through my head in this linear way. It went through as that little bead, pretending to be linear, and then it exploded into a whole bunch of other thoughts, which were, wait, what is this? What is this? It's too, and in retrospect, I was able to put words to it. It seems too strong, and etc. So it's just very interesting, and I'm just like feeling like communicating about it. So let me know what you think. Okay, bye.